entitled Bridging the Gap in Lockdown with eLearning, and is brought to you by Matt and Bill from the Digital College. Welcome, Matt and Bill. Thank you very much for being here and doing this with us. We have an excellent webinar program for you over the coming weeks, looking at subjects like coaching, employer engagement, online learning. And if you've enjoyed the previous webinars with the Better Health Generation, then happily they'll be back in a few weeks with a mini-series around the challenges of returning to work. So look out for that and all of the other in the series through the IEP Learning Network e-bulletin. If you don't get that, get on our website and make sure that you do. It's packed full of really, really useful information and lots of ways to engage. So the last thing I want to say today is stay well, stay safe. Thank you to Bill and Matt from the Digital College again, and get chatting on the chat link. Please remember that this and all of our webinars are recorded and available on the IEP YouTube channel. So over to you, Matt. Let's go. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much, Scott, and thank you once again to the IEP. So yeah, it's recorded, so I better use my best language and be careful what I say, I guess. But just a bit of housekeeping. We love to get feedback, love to get questions. As Scott says, if you're happy to put them onto the chat, and what we'll do is we've got a bit of time allocated at the end of the session to run through the questions. We'll also build in a bit of time to type them in at the end as well if you need a bit more time. Right, before further ado, let's crack on with some instructions. So just in case you're wondering who I am, I'm Matt Kingswood. I'm CEO of the Digital College. I've been with the business for just over 3 years. Yeah, my background is in delivering IT and IT support to people, basically, including a lot of charities around the London area. Been doing that for several years. When I'm not involved in training 9 till 5, I also spend my spare time training. I'm an FA qualified football coach, so that keeps me on my toes. So that's a little bit about me. Over to Bill.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Bill Coleman. I'm the Digital College's commercial director. I've been with them for just over 4 years now, and in my spare time, like Matt, I'm very enthusiastic about broadcasting. So I'm a broadcaster for a local community radio station. Something you've ever had one of those questions at a conference, you know, if there's a job that you'd really love to do, what would it be? Well, I've been hankering after being a broadcaster for 40 years, and eventually I've done it quite small scale in our local community radio station. I did spend 6 years in welfare to work with A3 as partnership director, and actually that's where I first came across our friend Scott Parkin. And I worked on various programs, Pathways to Work, Fair Deal for the Disabled, FND, and more latterly when I was in the sector, the work program. The Digital College itself has been going for about 10 years, and it's kind of evolved into an online training company. It actually didn't start its life with that particular guise. We have focused almost entirely on employability and employment support, but in recent times, we've started to develop some CPD courses in management and leadership, in accounting, and recently we've just introduced 5 new qualifications, and that's an area that we'll be moving into more and more as time goes by. So that's the introductions.
Thanks, Bill. So a quick summary of today's agenda. This session will probably run for about 30 minutes. And we're going to run through, obviously, let's start with talking about the problems that the employment sector, employment professionals are facing today. We'll be talking about this, I guess, a little bit from an intervention angle and obviously with a bit of an angle around learning and helping people upskill, but we'll be talking about those problems. As you'd expect, we'll be talking a bit about how e-learning can help. And we also want to talk a little bit about how the e-learning is changing and maybe what some of the consequences for us may well be. And finally, I think it's a little bit of hopefully why you're here as well, we can talk about how to incorporate, or our thoughts on how to incorporate e-learning into delivery, not just in terms of educating people, but also in a broader sense. We work with over 100 partners spread all over England, Wales and Scotland, and we'd just like to share some of their learnings and some of their best practice with you as well. So that's the agenda. I think let's kick things off, Bill. I think we have a poll.
Yes, so just to get things started, we'd like to ask everybody have you changed your working practice to deliver interventions or support remotely over the last 10 weeks since lockdown? So if you can get voting on that one, I believe the votes kind of take a minute or so to come through. Oh yeah, it's starting. I know for myself, I've been doing a radio show from home for the last 9 weeks, so not going into the actual radio studio. So it's amazing what you can do when you need to remotely.
Well, we seem to be getting responses very quickly at the moment.
Yeah. Okay, we're 21 out of 27.
Should we give it another 10 seconds, then I can show you the results, Bill, if you want?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
No worries. Right, here are the results.
Oh, well, it's quite remarkable. So have you changed your working practices to deliver interventions or support remotely in the last 10 weeks? And we've got 100% yes. And I think that kind of reflects what's going on in the country, doesn't it? I mean, if we didn't have the internet and this virus hit us, say, even 15 years ago, I don't think the internet would have been this advanced. And it's just been amazing how we've all been able to adapt so quickly, you know, not just in our business lives, but in our private lives as well, to harness what the internet can do for us and to keep our businesses going and provide some continuity. Okay, so we'll move on to the next slide, Matt, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Right, so as I say, our world has changed dramatically over the last 10 weeks. Who would have thought this going into this new year of 2020, that who could foresee what was going to happen as we got to March? There are many challenges that the industry is facing, and it's doing well in combating the majority of those. We're all needing to keep our caseload supported and engaged. Of course, we're used to doing that in a face-to-face manner. We're now having to work at that in very, very different ways. I would imagine most of you are coming under considerable financial pressure, as it's perhaps been more difficult to achieve outcomes and bring income into the business. So the management of your business are going to have the old magnifying glass on the finances of the business. So it's really important that you can adapt to things quickly and bridge that gap with the technology that's available out there, most of it on the shelf today. Social distancing has meant that for many, we'll not be able to bring people yet into our workplaces, but even when we can, our capacity is going to be dramatically reduced, because we've got to keep one-way systems going, we've got to keep people separated by 2 meters, all of that. So we've got to find additional capacity somewhere else. And actually, that digital capacity is sitting there in the online world when it comes to training. And that's one thing you can use to fill the gap, as it were, and experience it if you haven't experienced it already. I know a primary concern for a lot of people will be the safety and well-being of staff and learners. Well, the online world really does solve a lot of those issues, not all of them, but it certainly does solve a lot of them. What we are seeing is that a lot of companies are adapting their digital strategies very, very quickly, and that's enabled them to continue to work in a viable way and stay engaged with their customers, and each other's, which is very, very important. And I think just finally on this slide, you know, ask yourself the question, will things ever go back to the way that they were? If we look at the anecdotal evidence that's around at the moment, it kind of suggests it probably wasn't. So a lot of what we're seeing here today is going to stay around, you know, in some way, some proportion, in the way that we work in our daily lives. Okay. So
thanks, Bill.
Matt's going to tell us how, you know, how we can face this.
Yeah, so thanks, Bill. And yeah, I think I agree with you. You know, we're in this for the long haul, aren't we? So so it's not a short-term solution, whatever we're talking about here. So let's talk about e-learning, a little bit of how it works with remote interventions. I think the key point here is we'd like to get across is it should do a lot more for you than just teaching. As Bill said, you know, there's various pressures on your organisations now, but e-learning can help relieve those pressures in many different ways. And what we've done here is picked out 5 ways that we tend to see e-learning being used by our partners for more than just teaching, and see how many of those 5 maybe you're using at the moment. So first one up is the hook. We've definitely seen a lot of partners using e-learning to entice people in. You know, referrals are sometimes difficult to get volumes of customers depending on the program you're on. E-learning can be a great way of bringing people into your programs if you provide something tangible for free. It's also a great way of getting them to come back and keeping them on courses. So if you're on a 6-week program, we've certainly seen things like some enterprise and startup programs, people drip feeding e-learning over, say, a 6-week period just to keep people engaged with their programs. It's a very effective way of keeping people coming in the first time and keeping them coming back. Secondly, it's also an excuse. I think many of you are probably all hands at this. You need a reason to talk to people. You need a reason to see how they're going on and a reason to build up that relationship. Well, e-learning is a great way of doing that because you have a genuine reason to call them, not just once, but several times. Have you started it? How are you getting on with it? How did you find the exam? What next? It's a good reason, always a good reason to call people. And, you know, maybe you can get 4 or 5 calls into somebody who normally you find very difficult to reach. The boost. This is probably the big one we hear most often. People love achieving something. And e-learning at the moment, we're in lockdown. It's very difficult for some people to find things to do, to get that sense of achievement. Doing e-learning, passing a course at the right level, you know, really gives people a big boost. It gives them a confidence boost. It gives them self-esteem. And also, I think there's a slight physiological boost as well. When you achieve something, you get those endorphins whizzing around your body as well. So you get that nice little lift for a short period as well. So yeah, a lot of people talk about the boost. As I say, it's something you can be doing now because it can be delivered remotely. 4th one, less subtle, and this is something I only picked up after a little while of working with our partners, another voice. This means several things really, but often you may have a participant or somebody who doesn't listen to you, doesn't want to listen to you, but they'll listen to the computer. Or maybe you say something, the computer says something, they take it more seriously. And then the final thing people often use our courses is maybe to deliver a message they don't want to do themselves. So maybe you want to talk about someone's timekeeping, personal hygiene, things that maybe you'd rather not get into detail on. Let the computer deliver the message and you can be there to talk about what next. So yeah, don't forget to use e-learning as another voice. It's a very, very powerful tool. Finally, the time saver. I think this is something that we would probably be using more to talk to management about why they should think about e-learning. But basically, your time is super, super valuable. So don't use your time maybe for delivering generic messages. You could use e-learning to get somebody some background information, to do the basics, and then maybe when you talk to them, you're both in the right frame of mind and have the right experience and the right knowledge to have a worthwhile conversation. So that e-learning is a great way of preparing people maybe for a conversation, an intervention, or a next step, maybe say starting a business. So let's talk a little bit about how education is changing. I think we're all very, very aware that e-learning is obviously taking off in its broadest sense. And when we're talking about e-learning, we are today really being quite broad about what we're talking about. So obviously we all know webinars are taking off, but where we think this is interesting is what webinars mean is that you can reach a much, much bigger classroom, basically. You know, there's no reason why courses cannot reach thousands and tens of thousands of people. And this is going to be great for accessibility. People can start to dip in and access education that maybe wasn't available to them before. So you've got the broadcast, the broad reach of webinars. You have also the off-the-shelf and the packaged learning. And that's, I think, personally, especially one of our fortes at Digital College, is people now have access to the right learning packaged up for them, so they can take it off the shelf whenever they're ready. And that's great. That obviously promotes tailored learning, so you can obviously help people with your programs, but it means probably you've got a course that's got all the right components in it for that participant's needs, all packaged up, ready to go. So packaged learning is a very powerful thing. Virtual learning, I think we're going to separate that out a little bit from webinars. Virtual teaching, we're going to take virtual teaching being more of a classroom situation. So typically virtual teaching now is obviously slowly going more mainstream, and it's, you know, taking the classroom really into an online environment. I think those of you who've been involved with schools, you probably appreciate it's not so easy. I think Bill will talk about some of the challenges, but you know, we've certainly seen that people taking themselves out of the classroom, trying to teach online, it's not quite as simple as just starting with the webinar. There's a lot more to it than that, but it will gain acceptance as we get more experience over the next couple of years. Finally, we're going to talk a little bit formal online examinations and proctoring. Why is this important? This is a big, big growth area. So awarding organisations, even Oxford University, they're all starting to accept that people need to take exams in the home and take formal exams in the home. So you can go and get qualifications at home, online, and they are recognised by Ofqual. So we've got a small suite of them, and it will be growing. But yeah, someone can take a level 2 in food hygiene, for example, across a webcam. It's all secure, it's all accepted by Ofqual to their standards, and people now are be able to do this. And this is going to be probably one of the biggest growth areas, I think, as more and more organisations accept this as a way of assessing people. Obviously, this all fits in the world maybe of blended learning, which we'll talk about in a minute. But obviously, we're not talking too much about assessment. That's a whole other conversation. Obviously, online assessment, e-assessment, portfolios, those kind of things, that's a whole different ballpark as well. But obviously something that probably will evolve very quickly after this as well. So let's just move on very quickly in terms of the trends. So these are the trends that we're seeing. So education, we're talking about a multi-mode delivery model. So you could call it blended, but really what we're saying is, I think blended used to be a bit of online, a bit of traditional classroom. What we're saying is multi-mode. It could be a mix of anything, and hopefully a mix of the best. So it will be maybe an online package, some virtual classroom, maybe through phone calls, maybe you send some people to webinars, and that all gets put together into a course. So multi-mode is going to get prevalent as we get more used to the different ways of working. Pick and mix has started to emerge as well, which is very similar to build your own course. So pick and mix, people may be starting to access units themselves, pull down online learning themselves, and get more choice, maybe to suit their needs. Maybe you as employment professionals are actually trying to use pick and mix to help your participants. Maybe you're assembling 2 or 3 mini courses together to build a course that fits their needs. So there's a pick and mix thing. But there's also the student side of things, build your own course. And at the extreme, we're going to see a move towards build your own degree, where you can actually start to assemble all the e-learning yourself, probably with tutor support on top of it. You will start to assemble things to build your own course. And I think, given the change in which jobs change, the way the world is changing at high speed, a degree 5 years ago probably isn't appropriate. And I think universities and other establishments are struggling to keep courses relevant. So I think a build your own course approach is definitely going to get more credence, more acceptance as time goes on. Also going with that is a recognition of a broader set of prior learning. At the moment, recognition of prior learning typically is restricted somewhat to units that are recognised within the qualification frameworks. When we talk about broader, why don't we recognise someone who's done a Microsoft certification and an IEP environmental course as part of their degree, maybe, or part of their diploma? Why aren't we taking that? And I think that will move on and on. As courses, more stuff's available online, there'll be more assessment online, which means the quality goes up and the acceptance will go up. And I think that we'll start to see a much broader range of prior learning being taken to help people progress in their academic careers. But are there consequences? Yeah, I think things are going to change a little bit on the teaching side. The traditional teaching role probably will change. It could be more important than ever if people are doing more stuff remotely. But maybe a different emphasis. There's an emphasis on checking on people's well-being, their motivation, as well as are they taking the educational content. So maybe we'll start to see different emphasis and skill set of teachers coming through. But the second point is one that probably we're maybe a little bit more concerned about, and maybe we'll start to hear about more in the news, is the digital divide could increase. And I think we've seen recently in the state schools, for example, access to laptops is proving a big problem to children studying at home. So the wealthier families that have laptops and have internet and broadband, they're less impacted by studying at home compared to those that don't have access to laptops and good broadband. And you can easily see a household with 3 kids. That's a lot of laptop time and probably a lot of fights. So, it will become a barrier to people unless we address that. So, Bill, I talked a little bit about challenges. Maybe you could talk a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, the world of online training, I think, can be quite daunting for a lot of people, particularly if you've been in a more traditional setting of classroom training, working with groups, all the interaction that you get with those groups, the feedback that you get from them. It's sometimes hard to imagine. We come up against this quite a lot. How can I replicate that in an online environment? Well, there's a lot of evidence now that suggests you can. It's just different. And actually, the learners do adapt to it quite quickly and quite easily. All a learner needs is a internet-enabled device, and they're able to get off and running with their e-learning. And also, if they can manage to run a YouTube video, they can actually manage to do an online training course. It can be as simple as that. So don't be so concerned about learners adapting. There will be some that have learning difficulties. They definitely will need support. And we've seen that before lockdown, where tutors work alongside them while they're doing a course and help at various stages. But you may be thinking, if you're a tutor or you've got tutors in your team or trainers, what are they going to do if I move, X amount of my provision online? Very bona fide question. I think they tend to be utilised quite heavily, so it might give them a bit more thinking time. It might give them a bit more time to support the people who are doing the online training on a one-to-one basis, to do a bit of prompting, a bit of coaching. If they've got some issues along the way, they can step in and support them with that. And at the same time, they're still keeping that relationship and that engagement going with the learners. And again, I hear, how effective is online learning going to be as opposed to my classroom training? I know the quality of what I'm delivering. I can see it in the learners' eyes. And I can see the results when they pass the courses. Well, I can tell you that as far as the digital college is concerned, and our our entry-level employability and employment support courses, we've got a pass rate in excess of 95%. So it does work very, very effectively, and the learners like it. We've had, believe it or not, people do a CSCS card course, which is 6 to 8 hours online learning on their Android mobile phone. They must have square eyes after all that time, but they've done it that way. People are in tune with those devices generally. So, like it or not, I suppose online training is growing. Some of the dissenters 4 months ago wouldn't have it. They're actually clamoring for it now because it's a need that they need to fulfill. So don't be afraid of it. Don't see the challenges so much, but see the opportunity for you and particularly your learners as well. So Matt, if you could take us to the next slide.
Absolutely.
And I guess if you've not been heavily involved in it before, you may have been subject to a bit of online learning in your own company for yourself. You might think, how difficult is this going to be to get all this online learning pulled together for my learners? Well, the answer is it's not that difficult at all. It's a lot of it in the space that you are working, we've been working. It's out there, it's on the shelf, and you might, as Matt says, you might go and pick and mix it from different people. It doesn't have to have exactly the same look all the way through. It's more important for learners what they need. So when it comes to accessing the e-learning, what we found out, if you make that really is easy, like log in, learn, achieve, and it's a real positive experience for the learner, they'll come back, they'll be asking you, I quite fancy doing this course now, because they get that sense of achievement, and it builds up that desire to learn more. We've got lots of examples of people that haven't achieved anything educationally. They get a certificate from a course, and it really just unleashes a desire and some potential within them to go on and do more. Not everybody, but for some people, it really does unleash some inherent ability and desire to want to continue on that learning journey. What I would say to you is be wary of getting tied into complex, long lead time solutions. Yeah, and as you'll see, I've got a case study for you in a moment. You should literally be able to pick this up off the shelf, plonk it there, and get started in no time at all. So if you are getting into something complex, the chances are it's going to be complex all round, and it doesn't really need to be that way. And Matt will know this from his technical background. One of the things you do need to consider is all your integration requirements. So before you actually go in a specific direction, look at what you've got yourselves, look at what you might want to do yourselves. You might want to develop some of your own material, and how would you integrate that with other providers? Think that through at the start, and then you'll get the right solutions for you. And I would say, don't get tied in for a long time, because that's not a healthy environment to be. It should be very easy in, easy out with online learning. Thanks, Matt. So I don't know how many of you have heard of the total quality management guru, W.E. Deming. He says, it's not necessary to change, survival is not mandatory. Yeah, so of course he's saying if you don't change, you'll get changed, or you might get left behind. And I'm actually quite knocked back by the way people have changed in the last 10 weeks. People that had put barriers up for a long time, whether it's proctoring or whatever, all of a sudden they've got this desire to do it. And there is, I think there's an acceptance now that technology, innovation, e-learning, the digital world, it actually can be beneficial. It is not the answer to everything. It's not a panacea for all our requirements or our problems. It has its place, and if used properly, it really can deliver results quick and fast. So at the end of the day, we want to see learners learn, develop, grow, and achieve. It's really important that we kind of keep them central to our decision making and our strategies, our plans, as we start to think about working in a digital and an online world. And I think as they're our top priority, we need to ask ourselves what's best for them, rather than perhaps go with the way we might have always done things because we like it that way, don't we? Okay, thank you, Matt. We're going to do another quick poll now, and we're going to ask you, have you experienced proctoring either as a student or somebody organising an examination for a student? So we'll give that, if you can start putting in your votes, please.
That's quite a close one, this one, isn't it? Quite different to the last survey.
Surprisingly so, actually.
Going to give us something to talk about in a second, I suspect.
Okay, we've got a few more. 76% of people have voted, so we just got a few more to go. If you can, cast your votes, and I'll do a bit of summary of it, and Matt's going to talk about the technical aspects of proctoring. Okay, it hasn't moved, so I think we're probably as far as we're going to get, Matt. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So just to summarise, and I think what is quite a startling statistic coming out of it is that 30% of the people on the call have experienced proctoring. That is amazing, because it's not been around for that long. So it just goes to show that there is an awareness of it out there. Conversely, 33% of people haven't experienced it at all, and a fairly large chunk, the biggest majority, 40% of people on this WebEx do not know what proctoring is. Well, it's innovation, and Matt is just going to explain what it's all about to you.
Yeah. So I'll cover this quickly because I'm quite conscious of time actually now. So yeah, so proctoring is a way of watching somebody take an exam remotely. So typically using a webcam like we have here in front of us all. Also, some of the best systems will not only use one in a laptop, they may also use one in a camera side by side. They will also typically record the screen. So what this means is you can get a candidate to sit an online exam on their own computer at home, but you can then watch the environment they're in and also watch what they're doing with the computer. And yeah, I mean, we're finding it's getting growing acceptance amongst the Ofqual regulated, Ofqual recognised awarding organisations, and we're certainly using proctoring to deliver level 1 and level 2 qualifications. This is, Bill, as you say, it's innovation. It was very difficult to do this a couple of years ago. It's definitely gone mainstream now.
And I think it's just worth noting that, you know, Matt's been talking to accreditation bodies about this for the best part of 2 years, haven't you, Matt? And yeah. There was, I would say, a fair amount of resistance. It's got better over time, but I think lockdown kind of broke the deadlock in many respects, and those accreditation bodies were coming to us and saying, we think we really need this now. And fortunately, over those 2 years, that innovation had developed into a solid platform. Okay, thanks very much for that explanation, Matt. I'm just going to give you a quick case study now. PHX training, they're based up in Cumbria. Prior to lockdown, they hadn't used any online training. They were running a training program that was kind of multifaceted, and part of that was towards the end was the participants taking a COSH course, and then they would have completed that program. They were ready to move on and into the world of work. Well, I had a call with the MD, Bryony Fawcett, and she had a specific problem that they delivered this course normally in a classroom. So I said, well, we've got the course. Do you want to have a look at it? Share it with some colleagues, see if it does what you need it to do. And she came back and said, yeah, that's absolutely great. We set them up within a couple of hours. We got all their advisors registered, and they got their learners registered on the system, and the training happened very quickly. There was a lot of will within PHX to make that happen. The advisors were very receptive to it. Clearly the MD was as well, and it solved a specific problem. And the learners were indeed able to go on and finish their course. Bryony gave me some feedback. She said that the training was very well received by their customers, extremely user-friendly, really informative, and it met the needs of the customer exceptionally well. So that's brilliant feedback, and not uncommon to the type of feedback that we've got. And that was their very first experience of online learning. I've also, another quick example, I was working with an aggregates company that had a health and safety audit of the warehouse, and it was noted that the 4 people that worked there hadn't got a manual handling training and certificate. I rang up the digital college, we registered the guys there, and then we only had 1 PC in a little hut in the warehouse, and then they went in one by one that day, took the course, and the certificates arrived 3 days later. No classroom, no travel, no booking a room, no booking a tutor. It really did fit the need for that particular requirement. Thanks for that one, Matt.
Okay, so final slide here in terms of the content. So just to recap, this is where we think the benefits of e-learning are being encountered by our partners. We're obviously trying to share what we've learned from our partners. You may have different benefits or different objectives. But number 1, winning more bids. E-learning ticks a lot of boxes, especially around things like capacity, as we've heard, but also innovation. We hope that it can help you win more bids. Secondly, as Phil talked about, more flexible cost model as well. You're not hiring rooms, tutors all the time. You've got a bit of a pick and mix approach, so maybe for some one-to-one interventions, you just use a bit of e-learning as and when you need. And e-learning is a facility. If you get with the right e-learning companies, you can turn on and off. So ideally look for e-learning companies with low volume commitments or no volume commitments and no setup fees and no joining fees, and then you can turn your usage of e-learning on and off. Kind of a good way of controlling your costs. Third one, yeah, faster delivery. You can reach people wherever they are, whenever they are. If they missed a training course, you don't have to wait another month. You just get them in tomorrow. They missed the exam or failed the exam, same story. You can then rebook them and pull them back in again. And I think you can all probably see that e-learning hopefully will help as part of a broader strategy of delivering these training outcomes faster. And fourth, I think we touched on a little bit in terms of digital divide, but potentially there's there for more inclusive learning as well. We're very aware of lots of anecdotal evidence, lots of use cases and case studies where people have not been able to attend regular classroom training, not been able to attend regular college courses. Maybe they have health issues, there are other barriers, maybe they're caring, maybe they're trying to hold down a job 9 till 5 they want to progress out of. There are lots of reasons why people don't go into training at the moment. E-learning can very often help tackle those issues. So yeah, that's a very, very quick roundup of the benefits. I'm sure you have some of your own as well, but those are the 4 that I think resonate with our partners so far today. So, thank you so much for your time today. Look, please get in touch if you have ideas, questions, queries. We will be taking questions in a minute at the end of this session, but if you'd like to talk through specific use cases you might have interest in, by all means get in touch. Follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn. It's not a cheesy thing we're trying to do. We're not trying to get millions of followers. It's genuinely how we try and keep people updated about new courses, new qualifications. The marketplace, the world of learning is changing very rapidly at the moment. So by all means, follow those accounts and we can keep you updated on what we're up to and a little bit about what the industry is up to. You are more than welcome to get in touch, and we'll sign you up to our email updates as well if you don't do the social media. Right, as another thing, we are offering 5 free starter packs. So to the first 5 people that get in touch with either myself or Bill, we're offering these packs, which includes trial courses for staff. We will also offer 5 free accredited courses for whoever, participants ideally. Great way of checking out how easy our courses are to use. They are going to be accredited courses by Highfield. So you're more than welcome to get those as part of the starter pack. We also support our partners quite significantly in their marketing to their participants. So we will also show you and provide you with one of our catalogues, which will then brand up for yourself for you to use in your marketing, again, so you can see how easy that is. And finally, you probably gathered a bit of message here. We are a no commitment company in terms of our ways we work with our partners. We know how difficult it is to guarantee volumes, guarantee flows of participants. So we don't expect our partners, the people that we work with, to commit to those volumes either. So we operate a very simple pay-as-you-go model. That would also obviously work with our starter packs as well. We won't ask you to commit to anything. We'll be happily handing over those courses so you can see what they're like. So yeah, bang in your emails to myself or Bill if you're interested, and we will get those starter packs out to you. Contact details are here. I'm going to move them over to one side of the screen while we give you time to type in any questions you may have now. I know excellent. That away. So let me just move this over to one side, and we'll have a short background video to play while you're typing in your questions. Is that okay, Helen?
Yep, we already have a few, so hopefully there'll be even more.
Great. Right, well, I'll start on it.
Learning something new is a great experience, and once you've learned a new skill, no one can take that away from you. But learning isn't always easy. It can be difficult to fit it in with our busy lives. Maybe it isn't always as accessible as we would like. And besides, who wants to sit in a classroom anymore? That's where the Digital College online courses come in. They put you in charge. You can do your learning where you want, when you want. Whether you want to grab 15 mins on the bus or devote a whole weekend, our courses fit around your schedule. They last under 90 minutes, so even the busiest person can complete them in a few weeks. And the courses are very easy to read and understand. We make easy-to-use teaching slides and diagrams. There is always someone talking through what is on the screen to help you understand. And if you don't understand, you can go back and replay a bit of the course again and again and again and again and again. The Digital College has a wide range of short courses to cover most interests and needs. So, whether you want to get into construction, retail, warehousing or teaching, for example, there is a course for you. We can also help you with your IT skills and even give you tips on how to start your own business. Starting a course is as simple as typing in a username and password. Your course is then shown on the screen. Click the green Learn button and you are ready to go. Courses are video-based. Simply play each in turn and you are ready to complete the course. At At the end of the course, you will receive an official certificate to prove that you have completed it. So, there you go. Taking a course with the Digital College is an easy way to improve your skills, learn more about a specific job, and get that all-important official certificate to show an employer and hang on the fridge. Learn something new for life.
Okay.
Excellent, thank you. So I've got a few questions in for you, Matt and Bill. I'm just aware of time with people on lunches. So the first question I have for you, we've had some comments around the technical and the hardware side of things. So regarding technical specifications, there's concern that hardware will not be able to cope with the needs of online learning. Is there an issue with the industry moving faster than the ability of the hardware that our customers own at the moment?
I think that's a really good question. And I think that, yeah, clearly, especially training organisations that cater for the corporate market, I think they are, going to get carried away with people's requirements. And I think a lot of them develop their training to work on laptops and big screens. However, I think there is still a lot of organisations developing training that still works on mobile and tries to address a different need. So I think we've probably got a multi-speed approach there, Helen, to be honest.
Excellent. And I guess
I think there's plenty of people there who are developing courses for things like mobiles to be more inclusive.
So a good question can be then around are the courses bring your own device compatible? So are they going to work on tablets and be accessible and have that sort of micro-learning approach? Can be a good question for people. Fantastic, thank you. So we've had another comment around a number of clients are using this time to undertake online learning and really enjoying it. And companies are looking to adapt some of their normal sort of classroom courses or their traditional courses to run online. But there's concern around people copying them. So what can be done to stop courses being copied?
That's a really good question. I think it's somewhat difficult. I think that in terms of copying content and definitely avoid things like paper, avoid putting everything into downloaded notes because that's obviously very easily copied. Copying video is more difficult a little bit. I mean, it can obviously be done, but having lots of streamed content is kind of more difficult to copy. But I think probably the key thing is the outcome is having official accredited content. You can't copy that basically.
Yeah.
To be a little bit clearer, if you're on a course that delivers a qualification or delivers an accredited outcome, say from Highfield, for example, that's not something that can be copied, if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. So on a slightly different tack, how are the people that do the CSCS able to sit the CITB exam?
Oh, that's a really good question. Obviously a hot topic right now. The good news is the CITB test centres are now open again. There could be a little bit of a backlog because those same CITB test centres are actually serving other tests as well, I think, including the driving licence theory. I don't think there's any immediate plans for CITB to move those into an online test. So for the time being, we all have to basically go and do them in the CITB test centre.
Okay.
Quite interesting, if I could just jump in there, Matt, that we've been approached in lockdown by a number of councils, their adult learning departments, and that they are doing the online training for CSCS card, getting the learners to the stage that when the test centres are opening up as they are now, they can actually be prepared and go on and do their test. And they've seen that as quite an advantage of keeping their learners engaged up to this point.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so are the courses open to 16 to 18-year-olds?
Certainly ours are, yes.
Excellent, good, quick one. Excuse me. Next question. As a career advisor, I think e-learning is brilliant for people who are confident and can take responsibility for their own learning and have the drive to achieve their goals. For members of the community which are harder to engage, I believe that a tutor is needed to inspire and motivate the learners and encourage them to take part in lifelong learning. So that's more of a comment, really.
Yeah,
but it sort of ties in with that there are live online facilitation and there are courses that are taking place with that mixed blended approach.
Yeah, I think what that happens is potentially if you want to go for blended, then there's definitely a role for people to play in terms of motivation and making sure that people are getting what they want out of the courses. But it doesn't stop you actually using e-learning to deliver the knowledge.
Exactly. So that e-learning can share the knowledge and the skills, information, and then you can use a virtual classroom or this kind of environment to consolidate the learning into
100%.
Yeah, fantastic.
Brilliant.
Brilliant.
Question of thinking, sorry, Helen, the question of thinking that, you know, I provide that support maybe when someone's right beside me or in front of me. How can I mirror that in a kind of virtual world? And the answer is, in a lot of situations you can. In some you can't. You know, in some it really does need a face-to-face environment. But for a large proportion, you can still provide that in the virtual world.
Yeah, okay, fantastic. So we've had a question around, is this relevant to the Scottish market?
We're actually supporting organisations in Scotland today.
Well, there you go.
on what are very, very challenging programs, yes.
Okay, fantastic. And can students enrol for more than one course?
Yes, they can.
Brilliant. So we've had a question around the slides. Will people be able to have access to the slides? Now, all of these sessions and this session itself is being recorded and will be shared on our YouTube channel, but can we send some PDFs of the slides out as well?
We can work with you on that, Helen. That's no problem at all from our side.
Excellent, thank you, Matt. Another question, what security assurances are given to people who allow the proctoring cookies onto their computers?
That's an interesting question. I think there's no security risk from the cookies themselves, but there may be other security concerns about storage of videos and what have you. From our point of view, the actual proctoring is actually undertaken by the awarding organisation. So we are not going to be holding any videos or holding any. We are not going to be accessing people's computers full stop for that assessment. That is normally done by the awarding organisation. And my experience has been recently with awarding organisations embracing proctoring. Most of them are going down that route. It's the awarding organisation that will undertake the proctoring, not the training organisation, which hopefully will allay some concerns.
Okay, fantastic. And a last one here. Are there any plans for sort of baby steps, how to use e-learning course? One of our learners today feels that there is a need of a know-how of sort of how to do it, an introduction to course that people could enrol on first.
That's a really good question. I mean, I think there's probably a potential for a course there, a small module about learning in general, because some people haven't been learning for a long time that are accessing these courses. So I can certainly see that. We're in constant dialogue with our partners, and we would be more than happy to develop something like that to support our customers. There's no problem with that at all. I think it's a good idea.
Excellent, thank you. Those are all the questions that we've had. So thank you very much. Thank you both for answering them so well for us. I'm going to invite Scott back in if he wants to join us, and I'm going to remute, so thank you.
Ah, maybe he's gone and put the kettle on. Doesn't sound like he's coming on. So maybe we should wrap it up, Matt?
Yeah. Helen, are you okay to end the session for us?
Yes, absolutely. We're getting lots of messages through just saying thank you very much for the call, for the session today. If everyone has enjoyed it. Scott's not been able to unmute because I think he's had to use a different device today, so I've just had that message from him.
Oh, hello, I'm here.
Oh, here he
yes.
is. I thought it was strange.
The magic webinar gods allowed me to speak again. I mean, I would have had enough of me the first time, but anyway, thank you so much, Bill and Matt from the Digital College. That was really, really interesting, and I think it starts to allay some of those challenges and fears from people who maybe have not accessed e-learning as much as they are doing now in the past. So thanks very much for that. Just reminds me to say, please stay safe, everyone. Lots and lots of webinar content on the IEP YouTube channel. Some really great stuff and some really, really great webinars coming up in our webinar series over the next few weeks. So stay engaged, stay healthy, stay well, and thanks very much to everybody.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you everybody for attending today. We appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.